Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of Voxy Pop Community Town Hall. I'm your host, Brooke Ginty. If you're a parent in Chester County, you are likely struggling with the reality of virtual schooling. Today, our guests, Dr. George Fiore and Dr. Brian Broeker, will discuss what guidelines Chester County applied to arrive at this decision, what metrics we must meet to reopen our schools, and how the average citizen can help get us there. Welcome to our very own Dr. Brian Broeker, our resident medical contributor. Also joining us is Dr. George Fiore. He is the Executive Director of the Chester County Intermediate Unit and the liaison between Chester County's 12 school districts and the Chester County Department of Health, the Department of Education, and the County of Government. So, no small job. Welcome to you, Dr. Fiore. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Broeker, you need no introduction, but for those who have not witnessed you yet, you want to give a brief bio of how you're relating to Phoenixville and Chester County in the current COVID pandemic?
Sure. Thanks, Brooke. Glad to be here. I'm an ear, nose, and throat physician at Phoenixville Hospital and in the area, but I've also been the Chief Medical Officer for the Physicians Integrated Network for the past 8 years. And as a result, I do a fair amount of epidemiology. So since the beginning of the pandemic, I have been doing a lot of consulting and discussing and appearing on various shows and talks about the pandemic so that we can help get our communities back to work and back to school.
You have been very busy, as has Dr. Fiore. Dr. Fiore, I kind of gave you a quick title. Can you just break it down for our people? What have you?
You faded out there at the end, Brooke.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said, I gave you a very long title here, but can you just break it down and kind of explain to our what you've been doing since COVID hit and how you kind of relate into this big picture?
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. So in Chester County, we have 12 school districts, and we also have many non-public schools and charter schools. And the role that the Chester County Intermediate Unit plays is we are really the intermediate between federal and state government with our school districts, charter schools, and public schools. And what that means is basically since COVID, we've been relaying information from the Department of Education and from the Chester County Department of Health or from the Pennsylvania Department of Health and even the governor's office to our school districts. We've actually been holding biweekly meetings with our superintendents since about, I want to say May, but during the beginning parts of COVID, we were meeting every single day. We meet weekly with the Department of Health, and we also meet weekly with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So we truly are a liaison, but we also provide guidance and support. The Intermediate Unit does provide technical college high schools, the 3 that are in Chester County, and special education and early childhood programs that serve Chester County and beyond. So we have for our own programs, about 3,500 students.
Okay, so you have been doing a lot and being the liaison between all of the school districts and the communities. So thank you for what you've done so far. I know as a parent, especially I'm in the Phoenixville area school district, but I know other parents are in the school districts beyond. A decision was made at the last minute essentially to go virtual, and we had all hoped and prayed to be back in school. But can you just describe for us why the decision was made, in your opinion, to move virtual as opposed to back into brick and mortar?
So about 2 weeks ago, you saw a variety of different plans across the county, and that was based upon a few different factors. The guidance we were getting from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the governor's office, Pennsylvania Department of Education, and the Chester County Department of Health. But within the last, we've changed guidance that shifted. And the shifting guidance was from the Chester County Department of Health, which recommended that all schools in Chester County and Delaware County move to virtual instruction until October 9th. And part of that rationale from the Chester County Department of Health was around a few factors. One, our metrics were going down. We do have good data in Chester County. I think that was highlighted in today's Daily Local, that we've seen a great trend. But we've also seen in the past data, post July 4th, and we have Labor Day coming, their hope was for us to get the numbers of all the metrics down so that we could stay open for longer periods of time. Their fear was after Labor Day, we would have a larger outbreak, which would necessitate a closure. And this is also in line with the Pennsylvania Department of Health, who also released right around the same time, I'll call it metrics of guidance for us for when we should open and what kind of instruction we should have. Now, the Chester County Department of Health is more restrictive than the Pennsylvania Department of Health, but I think it became really apparent for our school districts that with the guidance coming from the Chester County Department of Health, our local public health department, it would be very difficult to go against that because this truly is a medical issue. And for us in education, we're going to follow the guidance that's provided to the best of our ability of those professionals that this is their strength. And for us across the county, that seemed like the best course of action right now. There are 3 caveats in the guidance. They said that we are able to open special education programs, which most districts in Chester County are doing for a population of students that may not be able to be educated in the virtual environment. We are also opening our career and technical centers. But keep in mind that and early childhood, the reason why these are able to be opened is because that they are able to socially distance. And when they are not, the class sizes are very, very small. And there are also plenty of personal protective equipment to ensure the safety of the students and staff.
So that makes sense. When you're dealing with smaller populations, it's a lot easier to control. But when you're dealing with 2,000, 3,000 students, that's got to be much more difficult.
Yeah.
So let's, I'm hearing from you, we really need to follow the data and the science. So let me move quickly to Dr. Broeker over here. Dr. Broeker, when COVID started, I remember hearing news about children and, they seemed to be more resilient and they weren't going to contract it the way adults were. And then this, inflammation disease came up and parents were scared. This disease has absolutely changed over the months we've been dealing with it. So can you tell me how are children faring with COVID-19? Are they contracting it? Can they transmit it? What does the data science say right now?
Sure. Well, one of the very important points that I think we have to start with is that science takes time. And so while we all want to get quick answers because there's a need for quick answers, we may not be able to get those answers quick. And sometimes the initial data that we have may point in one direction. And as we look further and get more information in, it may point in a different direction. So I think people have to understand the process and they have to be patient with the scientists and not think that the scientists are going to be able to know before things happen what's going on. Now, what's important to know is that in the very beginning, we initially thought that children weren't transmitting the virus as much. In the beginning, they weren't. But one of the holes in the science was that the children weren't going out. And as much as there was a shutdown for a short time for the adults, there's been a shutdown pretty much for the past 6 months for the kids who really haven't been in school and haven't been getting together. So while people imagined the idea that, well, maybe when the kids get back to school, they won't pass it around, it turned out that when they started going back to school, they started passing it around. So what we can see on the slide here is the current number of cases within Chester County. And on the bottom left, you can see the bar graph. And on that bar graph, you can see the age ranges, the amount of people that have the positive test for COVID within those age ranges. And you can see that the highest number of people is between 20 and 29 years old. And the number of children between 10 and 19 have as much, close to as much, as many of the other adults. So as it turned out, once the children started getting back to school, and as we've all seen in the national news, a lot of schools went back in person, whether it was colleges or school districts, and then within a week turn around and open again, because once they started getting around each other, disease.
Yeah, so for our viewers who weren't able to see the bar graph, I want to let you know that data is at chestercounty.org. There are coronavirus pages, there are coronavirus maps that talk about our county, that talk about our age groups. And I think one of the things when I was looking at this was ages 10 to 19, there were 523 cases of our overall cases, similar to the age group of age 60 to 69, which was 594. So when this began, I know as all of us following along, we knew that there was a population that were more susceptible, and they were the older population, but I think it is extremely important to acknowledge that our kids, our 10 to 19-year-olds, are getting this virus, similar to the 60 and 69-year-olds at 594 cases, and then our 80 and overs, that's a 610. So they are similar to other age groups, which is very important.
Yes.
So I know Dr. Fiore talked about our metrics and the metrics that we are going to be looking at when it comes to the community and the health of the community and the decisions to reopen. Dr. Broeker, can you talk about what PCR test positivity is and what incident rate is from a science perspective and how we can understand that?
Sure. Well, what's good about these metrics is it's something that you can look up regularly and see how your area is doing so that you can measure how well the community is doing in preventing disease and will that enable us to get back to school and work. So the two factors that you want to follow are the incident rate, which is the number of people in the area that currently have the disease, and then the PCR test positivity rate, which basically tells you how many people are starting to get the disease. So where we're going from the incident rate, are we going up or are we going down? And for the incident rate, to be considered safe, you want to see the incident rate less than 10 people per 100,000. And to be considered safe, maybe to get back to school and work, you want to see the PCR test positivity rate less than 5%. So if you can look on this slide, I actually just nicknamed this the COVID weather report. You can see what's it like out in the community now, and is it safe to get back to school? And you can see as of yesterday, we made this slide, that in Chester County, our test positivity rate was under 5, it was 2.5%. But our incident rate was greater than 10, it was 28.3. So for every 100,000 people, 28 people have the disease. And that does mean that those people can spread it. In Montgomery County, they were a little bit worse, a little higher case rate, a little higher test positivity. And look, Delaware County was even worse, and Delaware County is even worse than Philadelphia, that has a lower test and incident rate. But if you look at those and follow those, you'll be able to see that are we doing a decent job in keeping the numbers of cases down? Is the trend going down? And what's our ability to actually get back to work and school as a result? So one of the important things that we want to talk about here is what can the average citizen do? What can you do yourself at home today to make this better? And the evidence is very clear. It shows that if you do the following 3 things, it's more effective than shutting down the economy. And that is as far as preventing the spread of disease. And that is wearing masks. And by the way, it has to be completely wearing them over your nose and your mouth. We see people wearing them under their chins or even just under their nose, and it's not effective. It has to be covering both your nose and your mouth. You have to social distance at least 6 feet whenever possible. And you have to do good hygiene, wash your hands frequently and avoid touching your face. But if you do those things, it will enable us to get back to work and school. And so it's very important to emphasize that we all have the ability to affect this, and we all have the responsibility to each other if we want to get our kids back to school and ourselves back to work.
All right. I mean, I know as a parent it's frustrating to have to deal with virtual schooling. I know you both are dealing with kids at home, virtual schooling right now. But I think your point, Dr. Broeker, is one that really needs to be analyzed, and that is if we want our kids back in school, and if we want to go back to work, if we want to open up again, the community really does have to do its part because, as you said, we're following, I mean, Dr. Fiore, we are literally following the positivity rates of tests and how many people are getting it within the community, and that is the factor. Dr. Fiore, so I know we have metrics that are guidelines from the Department of Health and the Department of Education and the Chester County government. What do the next steps look like? So I know parents are in virtually. I know we have our eye on the prize of October 31st or whenever we're going to reassess this. So tell me what you are doing and what the districts and the departments are doing to analyze our next steps and when we can open.
So, and by the way, thank you, Dr. Broeker, for addressing it. It's a community-wide problem. We could solve it together, and we're hopeful we can reopen our schools. Our school districts are looking at the data intently, but Within that data, we have guidance from the Department of Health, and this is we're primarily looking at the Chester County Department of Health. And this can be found, as Brooke, you said, on their website. It breaks down when we could move from virtual instruction to hybrid instruction to in-person instruction when the data matches, when we hit those benchmarks, as Dr. Broker highlighted. We are below the 5% threshold at 2.5%, but that 28.3 per 100,000, we'd like to see get below 10 per 100,000. Those are the magic numbers that really help us to reopen our schools. And we're watching that. And it also has to happen over a several week period. So we're getting our guidance from the Chester County Department of Health. And we do get advice from the Department of Health, but our local public health organization is the Chester County Department of Health. It is important to note that it is a local decision. Each school district, each charter school, and each non-public school, these are not mandates. They are recommendations from these various departments. They don't have the weight unless the governor closes our schools like he did in March. So these are recommendations to follow, and I know each community is different and each circumstance is different. And I think that's the way each school district's looking at it. So that's where we're headed, at least right now. But we've received changing guidance every other week, and so we've learned to be flexible and nimble, probably more than we prefer.
Yeah, that goes back to us. We are all, and I want to kind of reiterate this point that we are all in a pandemic. We're all nervous about what's next. But I think it's important for us to recognize that, in your position as an executive director for the intermediate unit and as all of these superintendents and the school board members, you are making decisions for the first time in real time, last minute, based on data. So, as Dr. Broker mentioned, it changes. And your metrics are going to change. So we've basically got 8 weeks, right, from now until we look at it again to look at those metrics. Now, once we reopen, Dr. Fiore, do you envision everybody's back in school, or have we been talking about maybe a transition back into full in school? How are those conversations going right now?
Yeah, actually, all of those are on the table right now because we've looked at some phased reopenings, depending on what the metrics look like. Are we close enough where we could move from a virtual to a hybrid, where we can bring in smaller amounts of students? Some school districts would look at bringing in younger age groups, maybe K1, 2, and then slowly phasing back to our former normal. We'd like to get back to that sooner than later. So that's on the table. There are other factors that are going to play a role, which I think are important to note because when it's not just looking at data, it will also be the ramp up to be able to prepare for in-person instruction, and that includes bus drivers, making sure we have enough people to be able to transport students. We want to ensure our school districts did a very good job in ordering PPE, and we hope that those supply chains remain intact. So those are several other factors outside of our control that we're making sure that we have in line, because every school board member, every school district administrator and teachers, they want their kids back. They want to see their children. They understand the importance of having them in person for class. So I think we all can't wait, but we have to do it safely and in a way that we could return and stay open.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to note, is doing it safely. And that really does mean, as you both have pressed upon, is the community needs to do their part. So I know that this has been a trying time for all of us. Dr. Fiore, have there been any highlights or good spots that we can kind of step away from at this moment in time and sort of hold on to right now?
Yeah, I think in all of this unprecedented times, it's everybody's first pandemic. I think that's really important to note, that everyone is doing their best. And what we've seen is communities rally together. I would say, and this is not a hard fact, but we're approaching 1 million meals served since March, from all of our school districts to our neediest population of families. And we do that because it's the right thing to do. We've also been able to come together to provide other resources for families. And when I say other resources, there's mental health assistance, teletherapy. We've just seen our communities rally together during a very difficult time, and it really is something I think we should celebrate, and we'll learn moving forward that we have a caring Chester County. We always have, and when we have a problem, we are able to rally together. And collaboration between our 12 school districts, our county government, has been outstanding. I mean, no one is making these decisions in isolation or without being. So I think there's a lot to be commended for. I'm sure there's plenty to do better, but I think we keep in mind that there's a lot of grace needed when dealing with an unprecedented situation. I think we'll be better off in the future.
Yes, a lot of grace is needed for everyone involved in this. Dr. Broeker, you know I like my one last thing, so what is your one last thing you want to tell our community on what we can do to open our schools and to do it safely?
I think just to repeat what we've been saying so far is that it's up to all of us to be able to get our kids back to school and ourselves back to work. And what you can do to do that is always wear a mask, always wear it correctly, and always social distance and practice good hygiene.
All right, well, I think you kind of just stole my closing line here. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of giving all of us the opportunity to understand what is going behind the scenes, because there is so much anxiety going on, especially from our parents. I am one, you are both one. To know that these decisions are being made, they're trying to follow the science and the data that we have at this time. And guess what? We have 8 weeks to do it right, Chester County. So, as everybody said, wear your mask, social distance, wash your hands, and just be careful on Labor Day, because what you do on Labor Day is likely going to affect when our schools are going to reopen. So gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke.
All right, this is Brooke Ginty from Community Town Hall. As always, please remember that this is data that can be shared through our VoxyPop website and through our Facebook page. So if you found this information helpful, please share it with your family and your friends. And please stay safe, everybody. Thank you so much.